Have you ever peeked inside a cockpit and just felt overwhelmed by that storm of screens and dials? It looks like chaos, right? But believe me, every single element is there for a very specific reason. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the design philosophy that makes modern flight not just possible, but safe. Let's dive in. What you're looking at here might seem random, but it's actually an eye-tracking map of a pilot hard at work. This is no casual glance. A pilot's instrument scan is one of the most disciplined, most critical skills in all of aviation. Every single one of those eye movements you see is a deliberate and potentially life-saving decision. And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? With hundreds of different data points flashing at them at any given moment, how on earth do pilots know what to focus on? Especially when a split-second decision can mean the difference between a perfectly normal flight and a serious emergency. Well, the answer lies in a fundamental conflict: the absolutely massive amount of data an aircraft produces versus the very real, very biological limits of human attention. See, designing a safe cockpit isn't about cramming in more cool screens. It's about respecting those human limits. And this number is key. Research has shown again and again that our working memory, think of it as your brain's RAM, can only juggle about 4 to 7 distinct pieces of information at any one time. Not 100, not 50, 7, maybe, on a good day. And it gets even tougher. The average human visual reaction time is somewhere around 200 to 250 milliseconds. That's a quarter of a second to see something, understand what it means, and then decide what to do about it. When you're in a critical phase of flight like takeoff or landing, you just don't have time to be confused. So, you combine those two limits, and what do you get? The perfect recipe for something called cognitive overload. You know, when you look at accident reports, a recurring danger is a pilot's focus getting pulled to the wrong piece of information at exactly the wrong time. So how did designers solve this? Well, here's the interesting part. They didn't. They accepted that humans have limits and decided to design for them. The solution is this ruthlessly efficient philosophy that's built on a super strict hierarchy of information. And this concept has a name: information hierarchy. You can think of it as the art and science of making the most critical, life-saving data the most obvious thing you see, while neatly tucking everything else away until you actually need it. And this is what that looks like in the real world. The cockpit is basically broken up into zones. The information you need for immediate, hands-on control of the plane is right here, front and center, on what's called the primary flight display, or PFD. Pretty much everything else, it lives over on the multifunction displays, or MFDs. Okay, let's break that down a bit more, because this is really the core of it all. Not all data is created equal. There's the stuff you need to know this very second just to keep the plane in the sky, and then there's the stuff you need to know to get to your destination. Two very different things. Primary data is basically the lifeblood of flight. It's all about answering the 5 most fundamental questions a pilot has at any moment. Are my wings level? How fast am I going? How high up are we? Are we climbing or descending? And which way are we pointed? These variables are absolutely non-negotiable for controlling the aircraft. Now, secondary data is still vital, don't get me wrong, but you don't need it on a second-by-second basis. This is where you find your engine health, your flight plan, your fuel systems, your checklists. And typically, you have to deliberately select these pages, which prevents all that info from cluttering your view when you're just trying to fly the plane. So this core philosophy of separating information is pretty universal. But the two giants of aviation, Boeing and Airbus, have some famously different ideas about how to put it all into practice. Let's see how they stack up. The first thing you'll probably notice is this. Boeing sticks with the traditional yoke, that big control column right in front of the pilot. It's tactile, it's mechanical. Airbus, on the other hand, uses a side-stick controller, kind of like a joystick. It creates a much more open, minimalistic-looking cockpit. But honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg of a much deeper philosophical divide. Let's really break this down. Boeing's whole philosophy is about giving the pilot manual freedom, trusting them to make the critical calls. It's very hands-on. Airbus, well, they lean heavily into automation. Their fly-by-wire system has what's called envelope protection, which basically means the computer won't let a pilot make a move that would put the plane outside its safe limits. The goal there is to reduce workload. And here's what's so important to understand. Neither one is better. They are just different answers to the same complex question. And it's a debate pilots themselves have all the time. Some absolutely love the automated safety net of an Airbus, while others swear by the direct tactile feedback of a Boeing. Okay, so we've got these incredible digital glass cockpits. They're brilliant. But what happens if the power goes out? What's the plan B when all those beautiful, high-tech screens suddenly go dark? I mean, think about it. We've all had a computer freeze up or a phone just decide to die, right? Well, that is exactly why, even in the most advanced jets flying today, you will always find a set of old-school backup analog instruments, affectionately known as steam gauges. See, these aren't powered by complex computers, they're powered by pure physics. This, for example, is the pitot system. It works simply by measuring air pressure. Ram air rushes into the sting called the pitot tube, and the pressure difference is what physically drives the needles on the airspeed indicator, the altimeter, and the vertical speed indicator. But even these simple systems can fail in really tricky ways. Let's say the pitot tube and its little drain hole get blocked by ice. Now something very strange happens. The air inside is trapped. So as the plane climbs, the outside air pressure drops, right? This makes the trapped air pressure inside seem higher by comparison. And the result? Your airspeed indicator becomes a crude altimeter, showing your speed increasing as you climb. It's a really dangerous illusion. And this is exactly why pilots train for these very specific failures over and over. They learn to rely on two independent backup systems, the pressure-driven pitot system we just saw, and the gyroscopic system, which uses rapidly spinning gyros for attitude and heading information. The genius here is that these backups are designed to fail in completely different ways than the digital systems, giving pilots a vital safety net and preventing a single point of failure from taking down the whole show. Which brings us full circle, back to the pilot's most fundamental skill, the art of the scan. It's the human technique that ties everything we've talked about together, from the hierarchy of data to the different design philosophies, and even to using those analog backups when things go wrong. So if there's one key takeaway, it's this. The modern cockpit is an absolute masterpiece of human factors engineering. Its evolution isn't really a story about fancier computers. It's a story about deeply understanding our own psychology and designing a system that protects a pilot's most valuable and most limited resource, their focused attention. And really, it all comes down to this single core principle, a mantra that's drilled into every single pilot from day one. Fly the aircraft first, manage the system second. Every single design choice we've looked at today is built to make that one simple, life-saving priority possible, which, of course, leaves us with a pretty big question for the future of aviation. As our systems get smarter and more autonomous, how do we make sure the design always helps and never, ever hinders a pilot's ability to do just that?